Brian Johnson is a Silicon Valley millionaire who made a lot of money in e-commerce and related industries. But if you've heard about this guy at all, you'll most likely have heard of him because of his bizarre, increasingly bizarre and desperate attempts to stop himself from aging. He's the guy who was taking blood transfusions from his teenage son on the theory that his son's young blood will make him younger too or something. It's a scientific theory that he developed after watching the series Twilight, presumably. But fortunately for his son, he has recently abandoned these vampiric efforts because it turns out harvesting your child's life force is impossible. And the only thing it accomplishes is making you look like a freak. So Johnson has since moved on to other life extension techniques, most of which are sure to be just as pointless, if hopefully slightly less grotesque. Johnson appeared on something called the Rich Roll podcast this week, where he offered his theories about life and human immortality for 2.5 hours. But one particular moment from this conversation has gone viral. We're going to play that clip in a minute. But before we do, just to set the stage, here is a different 15-second snippet right from the beginning of the video that I think gives a very good window into this guy, and specifically into the fact that he is basically full of crap. Watch.
It's really simple. I basically don't trust anything in reality. Not authority, not my mind, not my perception, nothing. I just trust data and numbers. And the only thing I believe in is I don't want to die.
Now, you notice right off the bat a few things. First of all, the guy's 46 years old. He's a multimillionaire tech bro whose single-minded obsession is avoiding death and aging. And yet he looks, if anything, older than he is. And I know that criticism may seem kind of rich coming from me, coming from a guy who's 37 and looks like a 53-year-old shop class teacher. But the difference is that I'm not trying to look younger. In fact, I don't even understand why looking younger is considered automatically desirable, especially for men. You know, like, why do you care about, as a man, like, what do you care about looking? If you're 46, just look 46. Why would you want to look? Why, at the age of 46 as a man, why would you want to look 25? Even if that was possible. But turns out that it's not. I mean, looking younger is a fool's errand, and if you try to look younger, you will inevitably just end up looking like a guy who is trying to look younger, which is the worst thing you can possibly look like. Now, as for the rest of what we saw and heard in that clip, it's the kind of empty-headed nonsense that passes for profound these days. You know, he says he doesn't trust anything in reality. Doesn't even trust his mind. Bro, I don't even trust my mind. I don't trust anything. Trust nothing. But then he says that the only thing he does trust is data and numbers. Well, the problem is that data and numbers, Brian, exist in reality. And the only way you can access that information and understand it and interpret it and process it is with your mind. So in order to trust data and numbers, you will need to trust what exists in reality and your mind. So if you trust data and numbers, that means you also trust your mind and your perception, because the only way that you can access the data and numbers is through your mind and your perception. Which means that the statement, I don't trust anything in reality, I don't trust my mind, I just trust data and numbers, is in every sense meaningless. It's a statement with no content. The only thing that has any meaning is what he said at the very end, which is, I just don't want to die. Now that part I believe, and I understand it even. I don't want to die either. In fact, I am very much opposed to death. I'm against it. Like, I object to it. I don't want to do it. I don't want anyone I care about to do it either. But I will do it, and so will everyone I know and love, and so will Brian Johnson, and all of his biohacking efforts will be for naught. You know, they probably won't even extend his life by any measurable degree at all. Like he's not going to live forever like he thinks. He probably isn't even going to live to 90. You know, death is inevitable for everyone, and the thing that will ultimately determine the time and manner of your death will probably have a lot more to do with your genetics than the supplements you took. If your house is feeling a little bit chilly right now in the thick of winter, you may need to consider window replacements. I get it. For most homeowners, window replacement isn't something they've ever done before, and it may be a bit of a daunting task. Luckily, there's a company that will do the work for you. Renewal by Andersen is your one-stop shop for window design, manufacture, and installation. Windows play a crucial role in regulating indoor temperatures. If you notice a spike in your heating or cooling bills, it may be due to inefficient windows. Don't put it off any longer. Renewal by Andersen offers limited, fully transferable, and best-in-the-nation warranty coverage. Right now, Renewal by Andersen is offering a free in-home consultation on quality, energy-efficient, affordable windows or patio doors with special financing options. Text Walsh to 200-300 for a free consultation to save $375 off every window and $775 off every door. These savings won't last long, so be sure to check it out by texting Walsh to 200-300. That's Walsh to 200-300. Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions are posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. Go to windowappointmentnow.com for full offer details. There's a reason why if you listen to any interview with someone who's like 105 or something, what do you notice about these people? We've all heard the interviews of someone who's over the age of 100. What's your secret? You notice something? They never say anything about the importance of vitamins or supplements or intermittent fasting or carbs or gluten or stealing your son's blood or anything like that. Never say any of that. Most of the time, they say that they smoked cigarettes and drank whiskey every day for 85 years. Which means that not only did they outlive all of the health-conscious people, but they enjoyed their lives a lot more in the process, which is the best of both worlds. Whereas Brian Johnson has discovered the worst of both worlds. He's living what seems to be a pretty miserable life, consumed by his fear of the inevitable, and the chances are he's just going to end up dead and rotting in the ground before he hits 90, same as most of us. So that brings us to the clip that has gotten people's attention, but the setup here was necessary because we've established that this guy's full of crap, he's consumed by vanity and fear, and he has nothing that even resembles wisdom to offer, which makes sense of this part. Listen.
We're right now in a moment, or the last moment where things kind of have been how they have been, but they're about to change radically. And in this new future, we can't predict what's going to happen. We no longer have that ability. And so we're living in a zeroth world. And so Gen Zero is a group of multi-ethnic, multinational people who rise up and they say, we are willing to courageously step into the future. And we're willing to divorce or open to divorce from ourselves all human norms, all human customs, all human thought. And we're willing to say we're wide open about everything. Absolute blank slate.
Now, the first thing to note here is that there's nothing new about this idea. In many ways, this is classic Marxism. Many of the worst tyrants in recent history sounded exactly like this. As many people have already pointed out in response to this clip, Brian Johnson may as well be quoting Pol Pot at this point. And that's a problem for his worldview, for a lot of reasons. One of them is that Johnson wants to divorce himself from the past, and yet he doesn't know anything about the past. He wants to do something new, but he doesn't know what anyone was doing before. So there's no way to know if the new thing is actually new, which in this case it isn't. So he wants to sound radically new and revolutionary, and instead he just ends up sounding like a communist from 60 years ago. But for a moment, let's ignore the fact that this radically new idea is actually incredibly stale and rehashed. No matter how derivative they might be, that doesn't change the fact that these ideas are also terrible. Divorcing yourself from human norms, from traditions and customs, and severing yourself from the past, to the extent that such a thing is even possible, is a recipe for crushing misery, despair, and decay, as we're discovering right now, in fact. Johnson's vision is one of a race of people who are totally atomized and isolated, existing in a historical void with no connection to their own past, in a sort of cosmic, soundproof, sanitized booth where the voices of their ancestors and the traditions of the past cannot be heard. There's just nothing appealing or desirable about such a world. That is a world governed by ignorance, utterly devoid of wisdom, no sense of itself or its own place or its purpose. So just think about what it would be like to apply this logic in any specific circumstance in life. So imagine if you got into a car and then tried to forget everything you knew about cars, everything you've ever been taught about how to drive them, how to operate them, what they are, everything you've been told about the rules of the road, because all that came from the past, all that came from older people. And so throw all that out. On top of that, throw out any navigation device made by people in the past. Throw all of that out. Clean slate, right? We're starting from the beginning. Well, what happens then? If you could succeed in creating this blank slate in your mind somehow, you'll just end up sitting in the driveway staring blankly ahead, or else you'll pull out and drive directly into a ditch. At best, you'll drive around in circles and end up back where you started. That's because blank slate, the blank slate approach leads to dysfunction and disaster in any specific circumstance in life, which means that it'll lead to far greater dysfunction and far more disaster when applied to life itself. Now, this is no surprise. Pure, unadulterated vanity never leads anywhere good, and that's what drives this blank slate approach. It's the narcissism to assume that the past has nothing to offer you at all, that all the traditions and beliefs and ideas of your ancestors are not even worth considering, that all that came before you can be discarded and forgotten, and that you yourself, for some unknown and unexplainable reason, have it all figured out. It's like walking into somebody else's house and they try to tell you where the bathroom is because they've been living here and they know, and you say, nope, don't say anything. I just got here. I know my way around. I'll decide where the bathroom is. And then you go and piss in the closet or something. This is how Brian Johnson thinks we should approach life. And because he has no original ideas, what he doesn't realize is that this is how our culture already approaches life. We've basically done the thing that he's saying we should do. Look around. Where is the utopia that was supposed to come with it? Nowhere to be found. Just like Johnson's supposedly youthful looks. It's a mirage. And that is why Brian Johnson is today canceled. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out the Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.